Thank you guys all for joining us today. You are here at a training from Bridging Voice, April 22nd, alternate access to Android devices for general use and communication. All of the above is what we're covering today. Go ahead and switch to the next slide for us. Our speakers today are going to be Eddie and Kat, but let me tell you a little bit about us and do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Housekeeping, if you are here for a professional development certificate, please remember to stay all the way until the very end. And I will be putting an attestation link for attendance into the chat. If you have questions, you are welcome to drop them in the chat. There are many of us from Bridging Voice that are here today that are here to be able to answer questions in the chat. Eddie and Kat may also answer some of those questions as we go along. We will have time at the end for all kinds of questions and answers, so please feel free to answer or ask your question then if you would like, or you can wait. If you're just joining us, please remember to put yourself on mute. That'd be very appreciative. So let me tell you a little bit about Bridging Voice. We are a small but very mighty team and growing. We have 6 speech pathologists, one of them actually being Kat, who will be presenting today, an occupational therapist, which is Eddie. He as well will be presenting today. And we have 3 computer programmers. We also have our amazing leader, which is our executive director, Karina, who is also joining us. We have assisted over 4,000 people with ALS in all 50 states and 24 countries. And that number just keeps increasing. Kat, did you grab that number just recently? Because that's awesome.
I put
I
it
love that.
in.
Yes, Eddie, thank you so much. Perfect. And what do? We specialize in customizations, innovations, mentorship, and education. This training actually being one of them that hits kind of all of the above. The most important thing to know is that our services are always free and we provide support to people with ALS. We are ALS focused in case you might be joining us and with another disorder or supporting other people with other disorders. So I am ready to hand it over to you guys to get started, and I'll see you at the end for question and answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Trinity. So today, we are so excited that you guys are all here to join us. And Eddie and I are excited to talk about alternate access and Android devices. We imagine that there are probably kind of 2 groups of people on this call. First, there are professionals who are rightly comparing Android devices and Apple devices for the clients that they support. And then there are also probably people living with ALS and their caregivers who have an Android or are considering purchasing one and are wanting to better understand what their devices can do for them. So to accomplish both of these goals today, we're going to trace the ALS journey from the perspective of a user of an Android mobile device. We're going to start by defining some key terms in the ALS journey, including what is alternate access and why do you need it, as well as what is an Android device. And then we're really going to dive into what alternate access and communication can look like on Android devices as people progress through their journey. And we'll definitely wrap up with time to answer some questions. So at Bridging Voice, our goal is to maximize PAL's communication and use of communication technology throughout their journey, which means we're mainly focused on PAL's hand function and speech intelligibility throughout their ALS journey. This graphic illustrates the way we see these changes in hand function and speech intelligibility show up in the different types of ALS. So in bulbar onset ALS, we often see loss of speech intelligibility happening earlier, while in limb onset ALS, we see loss of hand function occurring first. What is relatively common, however, is more of a mixture of the two, where we see loss of hand function and speech intelligibility will occur simultaneously. we can divide this ALS journey roughly into 4 quadrants that can help guide what types of alternate access and communication solutions we consider. So, for example, in quadrant 1, you might be saying, I'm almost always understood by others, even unfamiliar listeners, and I can use my phone and tablet adequately. Whereas in quadrant 2, you might start to say, my speech is still fine, but I really can't access my mobile devices by my hand at all. In quadrant 3, you might say, I'm repeating myself often and many do not understand me, but I can still use my phone with my hands. And in quadrant 4, we start to see both my speech and my dexterity are severely compromised, and I'm feeling more and more locked in. So, as we go through this presentation, it may be helpful to reflect which quadrant you find yourself in. While each PAL's journey is unique and what those changes in speech intelligibility and hand function look like are unique, we generally find that need for different communication solutions can be guided by which quadrant you find yourself in. So in quadrant 1, a PALS is likely managing with their current technology and may need some early alternate access supports. While in quadrant 2, we start to see that you're likely needing more advanced alternate access tools or strategies to support continuing to use your tablet or your phone. In quadrant 3, you might see the opposite. You're able to still use your phone, but you're really needing something like a communication app to help support face to face and spoken communication. And then in quadrant 4 is when we start to see a need for a more advanced solution for communication, like a speech generating device with eye tracking technology. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Eddie to help define some of those key terms we were talking about.
Hi, everyone. Um, we've already been using words and concepts that we have not clearly defined. What is Android? What is alternate access? So as a group, phones and tablets are known as mobile devices. And mobile devices have an operating system. On Apple, it's known as iOS, and the remaining devices mostly run the Android OS. So that's what Android is. We're talking about the operating system for a group of mobile devices. It was developed by Google for non-Apple. So we're defining what an Android device is. They're non-Apple, so by what it's not. That Android OS is used on smartphones and tablets throughout the world, and throughout the world, Android makes up about 3/4 of the market, 72%. But in the US, it's much more evenly split. Android users in the US are closer to 44%, and the majority, but not by a great amount, 56% use iPhones. To define alternate access, let's take a functional approach, comparing it to standard access. And by access, we mean control, how you use it. So if standard access, the standard use of a Android device is tapping and swiping with your fingers and using an on-screen keyboard with your fingers, whether you're a thumb typist or a index finger pointer typist, that's all considered standard access. Well, then alternate access may be using a different body part, such as your foot, your voice, your head, your eyes, to control your device. I'm sorry for the background noise. I tell my clients that's what we call Brooklyn music. I live close to a hospital to control your device. Another way would be to use your hands or fingers differently, to use a different kind of device or use, to access. And sometimes when you're doing alternate access, when you're accessing in an alternate way, you need additional equipment. And we'll try to highlight that as we go. Would be additional equipment, or this is built in, that kind of, and that's a consideration, of course. So getting more specific, here are 5 examples of alternate access items that are popular with PALS. So one, you see someone holding a thick stylus. This is a thick and heavy stylus, sometimes is preferable to sort of a pen thickness stylus. It makes it easier to grasp. Using mousing, such as with a trackball or a trackpad or just a regular mouse as an input method for your Android device. A third way, number three, would be using speech input. On on a iPhone, it's a Siri. I'm sorry if I woke up people's devices by saying that name, but on Google, Hey Google is the word, and I'm sorry again for waking up Android devices. And an additional app called Voice Access, which allows for either task completion or total navigation and dictation on an Android device. Number four, controlling the pointer hands-free. So this is totally without hands. Number three was also hands-free. Speech input can be hands-free, and head tracking can also be hands-free, moving your head around. And the fifth alternate access example would be to mirror your Android onto your computer. So in the unusual situation where you have access to a computer, but not access to your phone. If you notice that some of these alternate access examples are generic and have nothing to do with an Android device, you're absolutely correct. Mountings that hold a device, for instance, don't care if it's an iPad or an Android tablet. They are generic solutions. We can place those 5 examples, alternate access examples, on the graph of the ALS journey that Kat introduced earlier. You can see where and when these 5 alternate access examples might generally become beneficial based on a user's ability to use their hands functionally and their ability to speak clearly. The specific recommendations for you for alternate access solutions should be individualized to your needs and your abilities. So you should consult with your local speech pathologist, occupational therapist, your ALS clinic service provider, through organizations like ALSA and others. If you have no local resources, the Bridging Voice team can provide helpful evaluation and guidance to what your next steps might be. So again, see how these are sort of sprayed out from quadrant 1, if you will, where both speech and hands are working rather well, but you may need some assistance, beginning usually with limb onset, with increasing difficulty with hand function. So these 5 examples roughly go into 5 categories. I've changed the wording a little bit, if you've noticed. So I'm not calling it, I'm calling it pointers and holders, and I'm calling it speech input. And again, all of these have Android examples and applications. Now we'll go on to each of these 5 categories using an Android device. One of the first things that someone with ALS might experience: increasing difficulty to control your Android phone or tablet by hand. Isolating a finger, an individual finger, no matter what that finger is, to a pointer. You may find that you're using your knuckle instead, or grasping the device often that's done with the less dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so I might hold my device in my left hand, but I may have increasing difficulty with that. So the solution area, the pointer and holder solutions, I think we're going to say mostly Android phones, but realize that this applies to tablets as well. And if grasping a phone is difficult, then grasping a tablet will be that much harder. If moving your fingers around the screen to select or type on a phone is difficult, then on a tablet it will be harder, that much harder as well. So here are some solutions. Before you can access or control your phone, you may need to find a way to hold your phone steady. So here are a number of ideas in two different categories. The first three ideas are for grasp assistance. These may stop you dropping your phone and also keeping the phone in a position that you can access it with your dominant hand. The last two solutions are hands-free solutions to hold the phone. If you are still walking around, but you have any kind of unsteadiness, you increase your risk of falling or dropping your phone. But I would say the greater risk would be the risk we're more concerned about is about you. If you're worried about holding your phone while you're moving through your space. So the last two items are hands-free, either worn on your wrist or worn around your neck. There are many products that fall into these two categories. We are not endorsing any particular product, any solution for you. Again, this is a place to begin thinking about what are ways I can help point and hold. And here come the pointers. Here, where these are named, and we're naming them this time, but again, just examples to be used as a starting point for your search. If your fingers are starting to curl or contract, to help you point to a specific position, a stylus can be helpful. There's that fatter stylus, on the left, and these four styli have been successful along with their outstanding features listed below. So the one all the way on the right, this is the entire size of the piece, goes on my ring and pinky finger, and so all the way down, and it's very, very small, and the pointer comes out the side of my hand, right? So where the pointer sticks out, is also a consideration. There are pros and cons to each of these options, so it will be important to consider these pros and cons when you're making a decision, making a choice, or trying things out. You also, again, in relatively early limb onset ALS, it may become increasingly difficult to get around the real estate of your Android device's screen. So moving your fingers across the screen without other fingers getting in the way, tripping you up, making selections that you didn't intend, and then tapping with enough localized force, making good enough contact to make a selection. So those are kind of the indicators for this phase, or this quadrant, if you will. But there are solutions for this, and it's a little bit of a surprise solution, I think, and that is pointing with an alternate mouse. Yes, that's right. You can use a mouse or a mouse-like device to control your phone or tablet. This is true on iOS as well. It's becoming more and more well-known that you can do this. And so from left to right here, three devices that are popular with pals. Again, an external typical mouse, Bluetooth connected, a large center ball trackball in the middle, and a trackpad now available wirelessly so that you can put that trackpad where it needs to be, often in the area of your lap. We try to be device agnostic again, not endorsements. They have been successful for others, and these will be on our resource sheet with links to these devices, a place for you to start your search. All of these can be placed on your lap, on a lap desk, on a table, on a lap tray. Particularly the trackpad and trackball can be on top of other things, can be on top of a pillow, whereas a mouse needs a nice, smooth, open surface. So this is what it looks like to connect an external mousing device to a phone, an Android phone.
Standard mousing devices can easily be connected by Bluetooth to an Android device. Here, my Logitech M240 mouse pairs easily. Settings, Bluetooth, turn Bluetooth on, and now the mouse is connected. Upon connection, the mouse pointer immediately appears on the screen. Similarly, a Kensington Expert Mouse trackball can be switched into Bluetooth mode and then paired. Now the trackball is connected as well. Standard mousing devices.
As you'll find, like on a computer, you'll find ways to adjust the sensitivity of the mouse, how quickly it moves across the screen, and even basic features like
Once Bluetooth connected, my mouse or trackball behave in a standard manner. Notice, for instance, that the mouse scroll wheel works by default.
I was trying to say before that.
As on a computer, the mouse functions can be changed in the Android device settings. In Settings, under General Management, there is a mouse and trackpad menu. Switching to the trackball, for instance, changing the pointer size and color from black to red and enlarging it to be more easily seen. I will then go back to the home page, and here is my red pointer operated by my Kensington trackball. Once Bluetooth connected.
So once we introduce mousing on a device, which again might be a surprise to some of you, that you can, I can mouse on my phone, I can mouse on my tablet. So it's important to add another feature of mousing, that mousing is a relatively complex series of actions. So it would be nice to be able to simplify it. So there is a way to simplify called dwell clicking, and this feature eliminates the need for separate independent mouse clicks, because standard mousing has 3 steps: grasping that mouse. So here's a mouse that I'm grasping, coordinated sliding hand movement and steadying the pointer on your target on the screen, so that eye-hand coordination and the steadiness of your hand to get a pointer, and then while holding it steady, clicking on the left mouse button with your index finger. That's how the mice are designed. But clickless mousing, or mousing without the need for an independent separate click, is only step number 2. Now is the only step, just the coordinated movement and steadying the mouse pointer on a target for a designated dwell time. This feature is often called hover click, timed click, auto click, or how I like to call it is clickless mousing. So this is what clickless mousing looks like on an Android phone. You may know this from eye gaze device and head tracking, but it can be used with any mousing strategy.
On Android devices, only basic dwell clicking is built into the operating system. In Settings, in the Accessibility menu, you'll find Interaction and Dexterity, and in the menu item, Auto Action After Pointer Stops, another way of describing dwell clicking. What do we want to happen? We want it to auto click. So in this version of Android, it's called auto click, and it's also letting me know that I can pause the auto click by top left corner action. So these are what's called hot corners in iOS, is now activated here. The auditory feedback is quite low, so see if you can hear the click as I go to the home page. I can pause this, and here I get some feedback, auto click paused. On Android device,
a mouse, as you know, can't do everything that your fingers do on a screen, so added functionality is needed. And this can be done with a dwell click app.
One way to get more dwell clicking functionality is to load a dwell clicking app from the Play Store. Now I will turn off auto clicking in settings and then navigate to a dwell click app that I have loaded and start dwell clicking. You'll see that I have crosshairs and I have also a toolbar that includes swipe functions. So if I want to swipe up or swipe back down, I have easy control. If I want to zoom in on a photo, I can use a double click, that is pictured here with the zoom click, and I can zoom in on these daffodils and then zoom back out by clicking again.
Some helpful tips regarding the use of alternate mousing in general on an Android and really any device is that mounting can be very helpful. Stabilizing the device in a place that's visually friendly. Most people do not need to look at the mouse they're using, trackball, mouse, trackpad, don't have to look, and they want to look at their screen. So there's no need for the screen to be down next to your hand, right? Bring that device up or at least tilt it up toward you. So there are different ways to attach it to hardware or to mount it off the floor or seated in your lap. The two lower items, you can get kind of 2 for 1 here. You can charge your phone while it's in a cradle or leaning on a stand. That's nice so that you can avoid any cables that are needed. And then it's a little harder to find, but some cradles hold phones that can be slid in and out just with one hand. Most of the other mounts require sometimes 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands to get a phone in and out from the mount. All of this has been alternate mousing on an Android device, and now we're moving from that second category of alternate mousing to speech input and handing it back over to Kat.
All right, thanks, Eddie. So, like Eddie said, all of kind of the solutions we've looked at so far have required some hand use still. But if hand use becomes frustrating, tiring, or even sometimes nearly impossible, but speech intelligibility remains intact, we can consider some speech input solutions. And so, what do we mean by speech input? Really, it's using your voice or speech to either dictate text to replace typing. You could dictate into a text message, email, web searches, anything that you would really use your fingers to type. You can instead use your voice to dictate. Or to even navigate your phone to replace gestures that you need your fingers for. So swiping, tapping, or anything else you might need. And so on Android systems, there are really 3 different levels of speech input that provide varying degrees of functionality. These levels also exist on Apple iOS and just have slightly different names, as Eddie mentioned, Hey Siri and voice control. But on Android, at the most basic level, one of the things that I think many of us are familiar with is the use of the microphone button on your keyboard to provide direct dictation. The limitation of this is that it does require some hand use to activate that microphone, and it's really limited to dictation only. So if your technology inevitably mishears you, there's really no way to correct or to navigate your phone using just that microphone button. At the next level, there's the Google Assistant, which will allow you to perform some basic phone functions hands-free. These can be quick things like making a phone call, sending text messages, or even doing some really basic navigation on your phone, but it's not going to allow you to do everything that you might want to do. And so that's where the most comprehensive level voice access comes in. This really allows you to use your phone completely hands-free without needing to tap anything or use your fingers. You can navigate your phone, you can dictate text, and when, again, your technology inevitably mishears you, you can make corrections and really that gives you total control of your phone. And so we want to take an example first. Look at an example first of how you can use Google Assistant to make a phone call on your phone.
The Google Assistant can wake up an Android phone from a dark screen and make a phone call. Note that you must specify up front that the call should be on speakerphone, and note also that Hey Google will not hang up a phone call.
To use the phone, just say, open phone app, or make a call. Or, you can ask me to call a contact or business saved in your phone.
Hey Google, call Bridging Voice on speakerphone.
Is that Karina at Bridging Voice, Annie Roche SLP Bridging Voice, or Bridging Voice?
The last one.
Alright, calling Bridging Voice.
Thank you for calling Bridging Voice. If you know the extension of the
Send
So as you can see in that last video, there wasn't a way to hang up the phone call hands-free using Google. The whole process was relatively smooth. This is now an example of how you can send a text using Hey Google, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons of it.
Sending a text message with the Google Assistant is easiest using the step-by-step script. I can dictate one utterance, and I can either send this message or not. I can't edit it. Hey Google, send a text message.
Who do you want a message?
Bridging Voice.
What's the message?
I could use some help. Could someone call me, please?
Sure, I could use some help. Could someone call me, please? Ready to send it?
Yes.
Sending your message to Bridging Voice.
You can see that both of those processes were relatively smooth. There are definitely some nuances to how you can use the Google Assistant to really make sure you're getting these actions right. So the first thing that you should do is make sure you pause after saying that wake word, which is either hey or okay, Google. This just gives the technology some time to process that it's heard you and then can process your command. It is important if you're making a phone call that if you want the phone call to be on speakerphone, if you are not holding the phone to your ear or wearing maybe an earbud, that adding on speaker when answering or making phone calls will allow it to automatically switch into that mode. Um, there are some Android phones and tablets too that have a setting in the phone app that you can actually have it default to answering on speakerphone, but it's a little bit different based on your model and the system, the software that you're using. So it's always something to check. And then as Eddie showed too in that first video, it's always important to enable your assistant on your lock screen so that if your phone is locked, you're still able to make a phone call if needed. And so now we're going to take a look at how these same processes, making a phone call and sending a text, would look with voice access. You'll note with voice access that we're making a phone call. There are definitely quite a few more steps.
With Google's voice access, a user can tap any button on the screen using its number tag. With these number tags, I can unlock the phone, control the phone dialer to make a call, toggle the speakerphone, and even hang up. Hey Google Voice Access.
Got it, but your device has to be unlocked for that.
Foxtrot, foxtrot. Bravo, foxtrot. Bravo.
Opening. Voice access.
Go home. Go home. Open phone. Tap 27. Tap 10. Tap 12. Tap 12.
Thank you for calling Bridging Voice. If you know the extension of the person you are calling, you may dial their extension at any time. For
Tap
Deborah,
15.
dial 701. For Eddie, dial 702.
Tap
For
15.
Nahum, dial 703.
Tap
For
15.
Trinity, dial 704.
So you'll note with the voice access that while there were a few more steps to get in, it does offer the ability to put it on speakerphone after you've already started the call. And it also allows you to end the call using just your voice. And so now let's take a look at sending a text using voice access.
Oh, slides. There's nothing there.
Sending a text message using Google's voice access allows me to append and even edit my message before sending it. Open Messages. Tap 11. Bridging Voice. Tap 12. Tap 12. I didn't leave my phone number. Period. Delete that. Delete previous 3 words. New line. Delete that. Delete previous 3 words. Five 1-6 776 7969. Tap 20.
So in general, voice access can be a fantastic way to use your phone for some of those more complicated tasks like navigating your phone or performing any hand gestures like swipes, and definitely for correcting any longer dictation. But a couple of things that can make it a little bit easier. One of the things you might have noticed on Eddie's phone as he was giving us that example is that there were numbers next to all of the places on the screen where you could click. This makes it a lot easier because it takes the guessing game out of what voice access calls each app or what they are want you to say for each app. Turning on the numbers by saying show numbers when voice access is on is a really helpful way to do that. You also should activate voice access on calls because this allows you to be able to do things like turn on and off the speakerphone or hang up the call without using your hands. And then stable mounting is really highly recommended for voice access. It gives you a better view of your phone and it's going to give you a way to have the microphone hear you best. And so these are just some examples again, definitely not ones that we feel like you have to buy, but really great starting points. So if you're and really these mounting options are dependent on where you're spending most of your time throughout the day. So if you're in your wheelchair, you might find something like the RAM or the modular hose really helpful. If you're in your bed or in a recliner, a floor stand might be a better option. And if you sit somewhere with a table accessible, like a kitchen table or at a desk, or maybe a recliner that has a side table, you might find like a tablet or phone stand to be more helpful. This isn't the only time that stable mounting is recommended, and these options are actually going to apply for the option that Eddie is going to discuss next, head tracking. So just some resources for speech input as well that Trinity will in the chat.
Okay, we're back. We've left our third category, if you're keeping track. Number 3 was speech input, and Kat wrapped that up just now. We're looking at head tracking now. In head tracking, the user's head behaves like a big joystick, or your big head behaves like a joystick, depending how you look at it. Leaning forward and back will allow you to go like nodding yes. We'll move the pointer up and down the screen, and shaking your head no in the vertical plane will, I'm sorry, in the horizontal plane will move your pointers to the side. There are different head tracking systems, and so there are really 3 ways to do it. You can put an external camera onto your device. You can wear a gyroscopic mouse on your head, right? So the other way, instead, no camera. And the third way is the simplest, uses the built-in front camera, and it just finds your face and tracks it. So there are really these 3 ways are all viable. The easiest way, to try it out for yourself is to get the Eva facial mouse free in the Play Store. So head tracking, this is what head tracking, I'll do a quick part of it.
I am using Eva Facial Mouse Pro, an Android app that allows head tracking using the front-facing camera. I just put my dwell selection into pause. I wanted to explain that I will now be going to send a text message to Bridging Voice. When I move my head and nod in yes direction, I get vertical movement of my mouse. When I shake my head no, I get horizontal movement across the screen. Right? Only when I resume the dwell will selections be made. So up to the activation square, and I'm off to text messaging. I'm going into Bridging Voice, and I'm going to text.
So you can see that shrinking dot is your dwell. Remember dwell clicking? Well, this is another application of that dwell clicking. I'll save you the creation of the message. For head tracking, you definitely need stable mounting. You cannot you can't hold it in your hand. Your lap is probably the wrong place to keep it. You probably want to bring that phone up. Dwell clicking is often the way to make selections. Although if you notice back a couple of slides, I can go back. The byte switch, this is a rather useful clicking option that is a physical mechanical click. So a byte switch as a selection rather than the dwell. When you're in a recliner or in bed, it can be really hard to fight gravity and lift your head in the saying yes. It's much easier to say no when your head is on a pillow. So when your head is on a pillow, lifting your head against gravity or pushing back against the pillow can be difficult. When you're using one of those external camera systems, these little tiny reflective dots are what the camera is looking for. And those can be applied to a pair of glasses or to your skin. So we're going to diverge from the alternate access trip and go out to using Android devices with a communication app.
And so communication apps are helpful for pals with bulbar onset ALS or maybe pals who have now noticed changes in their speech but haven't gotten their communication device yet. Um, so it's really helpful when you're still using your hands well, but speech might be difficult. This can also be used with some of these alternative or these alternate access methods we've discussed, like head tracking and the mouse as well. And you may be able to get assistance with purchase of these apps through Team Gleason or a local ALS organization. So there are many different apps that can be used on Android devices to help provide a text-to-speech option for communication. But the two that I've highlighted here, Speech Assistant AAC and Predictable, are the two that we've seen be very successful for pals and that a lot of our pals have used. Both do incorporate voice banking and message banking. Soon, they will both also incorporate voice cloning that is currently available on the Predictable app. They both offer ways to do both text to speech and use kind of full phrase messages. And then they do incorporate those alternate access methods like touch, head tracking, scanning, and even some can work with eye gaze. It's important to note that Android communication apps do not work on phone calls, so the speech will not come through phone call, and that is a Android operating system issue rather than something that's specific to the apps. So what do you do if you do need to make phone calls on Android devices? Like I said, those text-to-speech apps won't integrate, but there is an option to do real-time text or text calls, which allows you to basically make a phone call with someone and then you can provide text input from your side for them to be able to read in real time. So we've included some more information on that in the chat as well.
Right. So Kat just went over a specific use of applications on Android, right? So no matter how you're using your device, again, the first four things that we've talked about, pointers and holders, an alternate mouse. You wouldn't use speech input to use a communication app. That's a little circular, but you might use head tracking, right, to point at letters in an alphabet and type out a message, or pick from, in a communication app, you might pick from a list of phrases, pre-prepared phrases. And now we're at the end of our 5-step journey, returning to the alternate access sequence. The 5th category, Android device mirroring on a computer. Now, it seems strange that a user who can't use their Android phone tablet by hand in any kind of standard way has full computer access, but that's often exactly what we see later in the ALS journey. Eye gaze users of speech generating devices have full computer access, and Android devices rather seamlessly display and can be controlled on a Windows computer system and controlled by its mouse, whatever that mousing is, in the case of eye tracking coming up. Here are 2 screenshots of easy Android access via a Windows computer. The top one is using the Visor app. So that rectangle is an image of an Android tablet, right? It looks just like a continuation of your Windows desktop, and that's how it behaves, as a continuation of your Windows desktop. There are also some apps that pull from the phone, usage that you wouldn't expect. Here's an example of Phone Link that will connect your Android phone to your Windows computer and give you messaging. It doesn't look exactly like the phone. It's not an image of the phone per se, but it is a very easily readable and accessible messaging app so that you can continue text messaging when you're using a computer. So an example of a speech generating device, a Tobii i16, has its built-in eye gaze camera. And so the Tobii will behave like a big eye mouse controlling the Android phone that is mirrored on its screen in its own window. Here's an example.
I am sending a text message using TD control on my mirrored Android phone.
Those of you who are not familiar with
Notice
TD
that I do
control,
not need to use the keyboard from the Android phone itself. I can use the TD control keyboard.
while using my eyes, I found that it was hard to talk at the same time. And so I was describing that here I have a choice. I can either click on these tiny targets on the phone itself, but much more efficient is large targets.
I'm typing this message by
After I complete this, I'm going to
iPace.
close the keyboard and then click on the send button on the Android after I correct the error I made.
Press enter to send. Close to take a look. Oh, I got an R in there. Let me get rid of that.
I'm trying to get rid of the R, and I've placed the cursor ahead of the R, and now I'm just going to backspace to fix it. And again, fixing it on my phone before I send the text message
And
off.
now I'll send.
Now I'm going to send. So that was our final example. Just in conclusion, we want you to have learned, or we've demonstrated that there are numerous ways to control an Android phone with alternate access, and Android device users should be able to continue to use them throughout the ALS journey. And we went through all 5 examples, which turned into 5 different categories of alternate access: holders and pointers, alternate mousing by hand, including dwell clicking, speech input, head tracking input, a special kind of mousing, and a very special kind of mousing using an entire computer speech generating device with eye tracking to mouse on a mirrored image of your Android phone. Take it away, Trinity.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Now, I know we're running a little short on time, but you are welcome to stay on with us. We will still make time for question and answer. We are not leaving, so please stay on. And for those of you who put some questions in the chat, we will be bringing those forward to answer those. But let's do just a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, I would like you to know that we have open office hours every Tuesday. And so we encourage you to join us. I dropped the link there as well as the QR code. And
That's
you
going to
can
have
come with questions. You can come with, if you just want to learn, we have some amazing Bridging Voice ambassadors who are there to answer questions directly from users as well as from our team members. Next slide. All right, upcoming trainings. So we have some upcoming trainings, and this is not all of them. Trust me, there are many more that are coming. But the next one that we have on the docket is May 13th, how to choose the best communication system or app, unique considerations for people with ALS. Please join us. That's going to be a fabulous one. You are welcome to, I dropped the link in the chat as well as the QR code on the screen to sign up to get notified of upcoming trainings. And just like this one, even if you can't join us, go ahead and sign up because you will get the after training email with all of the links and all of the resources, as well as a link to our YouTube channel. All right. Here it is. Here is our YouTube channel. Please join us. Subscribe, like, check us out on YouTube. This is all of our past recordings and trainings, and you can always find anything in the future in case you happen to miss it. Great thing about this is all of our resources and links are actually included in right in these YouTube sites, so you're able to find everything that you need. All right. And lastly is our professional development and attendance. If you would like a professional development certificate, please go ahead and fill out this attendance form that I just put in the chat right now to let us know that you were here. And at this time, you are welcome to turn on your microphones, turn on your cameras. You could put your questions right into the chat. And know that you can always reach us here at Bridging Voice, info@bridgingvoice.org. If you do have to leave but have further questions that you may like to ask. So Eddie, if you want to go ahead and end our screen share at this time. We have a couple of questions that were in our chat that I want to get to. But I also want to direct everybody, if you want to review the chat, Juan, who happens to be one of our Bridging Voice ambassadors, actually shared his setup to show how he has his camera or how he has his phone mounted right next to his communication device. It's absolutely fabulous. So please see that in the chat if you would like. All right, Eddie, I'm going to start with Mariah's question. With the Kensington, are you able to access programming download for the buttons like you do on a computer?
So that's be the Kensington Works, the Trackball Works app. So that's what we're talking about, how to program what the 4 buttons do. As far as I know, it's not built for mobile devices, so you would need to run that on a computer. In other words, connect the Kensington trackball to a computer somewhere, change its settings, save them, and then use it on the tablet or the phone. So make it Kensington Works doesn't have an app as far as I know.
All right. Eddie, Michael had a question. Or Mr. How to move the on-screen PC keyboard out of the way of a phone display screen?
Um, which keyboard? Usually
The
go back. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
on-screen keyboard. So this question came in when you were doing mirroring, and how do you move that out of the way?
Right. So that keyboard in that particular scenario was the keyboard belonging to TD control. That's not the on-screen keyboard that you get when you touch the screen. That's the TD control keyboard, which can just be X'd out and removed. You can pause your TD control. But the truth is, you probably never want to type on the tiny letters of the keyboard with TD control because it takes multiple selections to get that precision with TD control. You have to select and then click, whereas the larger keyboard is just look, dwell, and click. It's a single action. TD control is a multi-step sequence for clicking anywhere on the screen. So you can move that keyboard around to the top of the screen, the bottom of the screen, so that you can see the phone's image, not have it block.
All right. Sean had a question. How well does voice access dictation work, and is it improving?
I don't have a problem with it. I think it's rather accurate. I don't notice a big difference between the Apple iOS voice dictation and the Google dictation. They're both, not built into the device. They're both, remote servers. In the past, it has been worse, but recently I haven't noticed any difficulty with it. So I would say it's improved already. So Kat, what about you? Do you have any difficulty with dictation? Do you find it more frustrating than, let's say, on iOS?
I do not. I would agree with what you said, Eddie. I think it has definitely gotten better, but I don't have any um increased frustration with voice access on Android than I do with voice control on iOS.
Great. Thank you, guys. All right. Lee Rich has a question. I've had some voice access users where there are one or two voice commands that the phone just won't pick up. Is there a way to work around this?
So in voice control on iOS, there is the ability to make a custom command, which would be one obvious way to be a workaround. But Android does not have that. Voice access does not have that. And so you have to work within their system. So if there's a workaround, it would be a different command, perhaps using the grid overlay rather than the numbers overlay. So if you're trying to get at a particular location on the screen and it won't go. So this leads me, by the way, to a question that has not been asked. But I think, what if I have not been using a phone for a couple of years and now I have to buy a phone? Should I buy an Android or should I buy a iPhone? All right. So doesn't everybody want to ask that question? So to me, it's quite clear, especially now that Bridging Voice has an iPhone mirroring solution at the latter stage when you're using a speech generating device, that an iPhone has more stable alternate access all the way through these 5 stages that PALs often use, better than Android. So voice control is better than voice access. Otherwise, mirroring is about the same. And so the other differences are minimal. Head tracking with built-in features on iOS is more robust than head tracking with Eva, the facial mouse.
All right. Mariah has another question. Does voice access allow for custom commands like it does in iOS? Thinking of
No,
how you unlock the passcode.
sadly, no.
Yeah,
I thought
so
you would
if
answer that, but I just wanted to ask it again just to make sure.
yeah,
I
and
see.
so if there is something like that, we often will recommend people either remove kind of a passcode or things if they feel comfortable doing that, or they have the ability to use like face recognition or something like that. That might be a better option than using an actual passcode.
John has a question. Does voice access require internet?
Only for the setup, but usage it does not require. Similar to voice control in that way.
Fabulous. Does anybody have any last questions regarding
Trinity,
Android? Yes.
this is Dave. Two things
Hi
I
there.
came to mind. I understand we're using the keyword either okay or hey when using the Google, and you talked about sending the text. You can't change it. But one other thing I did discover, you can say cancel, and then it would say, what would you like to say? So if you notice midstream that you made a mistake typing, you could say cancel and start your new sentence.
Cancel. Cancel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get out of this.
Not, oh, correction, not cancel. You say change.
Change.
Change is the key word.
Okay.
So when you say change, it will start over and do it. My other question, one question I have is how soon will this video be available? Because I really enjoyed it. And also I use the voice access since Eddie trained me, and I love it on my phone for everything.
Dave, did Eddie pay you to say that? No, I'm kidding. This is absolutely fabulous.
Oh
Thank
no,
you
oh
so
no.
much for sharing those,
Yeah, I've
sharing
only been
that with
using it.
us.
Yeah, I've only been using it a couple weeks since he did the training. And when it's the phone mounted to my bed rail, it, it works perfectly. I just can't figure out how to mirror it to my big screen.
All right. So yes, this training as well as the after training email should go out um, at the latest by next week. We try to get them done earlier, but the latest next week you will get a link, and you are welcome to share this email with anybody and everyone that you would like to. But I love that
Perfect. Because
idea of cancel. I did not know. Kat, Eddie, did you guys know about that command? It's
or
wonderful.
change is actually
Change.
Change. Hmm.
Yeah, I'll definitely be sharing it in my upcoming healing ALS group meeting.
Okay, and so
Great.
Thank you.
drop an email.
Okay. Uh, Mariah had another question, Eddie, with Eva. Do you know where it is targeting? Like, can you set this, for instance, the hold camera mouse button in for the computer would allow you to select what is tracked. The hold camera mouse built in for the computer would allow you to select what is tracked.
So to answer the first question, do you know where it's targeting? Yes. So when you're moving Eva has its own pointer. So it has its own, it doesn't use the dwell mouse. I turned it off, actually, the auto click. So the head tracking Eva program has a little gray circle. I think it's even modifiable, what that looks like, what color and how large it is. But it follows your head movement, and it is kind of a mouse circle, so you know where you're targeting. Can you set
So
this?
can I just edit that because I know Mariah and I think I know what she's asking. Um, can you set what part of the face tracking?
Ah,
Am I right, Mariah?
yes, I don't know.
Yes.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Is it tracking the forehead or the nose? What is it tracking for positioning? Does
I
anybody else on this call by any chance have any experience with that or want to, like I said, you're welcome to turn your camera on, your microphone. Anybody want to share? The
I'm
chat,
not
Kate
I'm not
shared in the
sure.
chat. Don't mind her. She's an OT. We
It's
love our OTs.
certainly not it's not a single point. So I mean the whole sort of paradigm is probably a triangulation. It's probably identifying mouth and eyebrows. I'm not sure how it identifies the face, but it's going to be a larger surface area than a single point. So, but I don't know if you can, move the spot that it is targeting.
All right. Thank you for that, Maria. You have fabulous questions. Thank you so much for answering or for asking those. Anybody else have any other questions? Nope. Great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording at this time.